Hello, Mr. Jason. Test, test. All right, we're gonna a few minutes and then we'll get started. So today we're gonna spend time on kicking technique, on all the different kicking techniques that we have. Kind of work the details, and then ways that you can watch people and kind of help correct. And then, like, if you were to teach someone who doesn't know how to do it, how you would go about teaching the technique. So we're gonna spend time with that. So obviously, if you want to do some of these kicking techniques, something you may want to stretch and warm up just a little bit. We're not kicking real high or anything real crazy. But. Hello, Mr. Giles.
Hey, afternoon, Master Hong.
Yeah, good to hear from you, sir.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to stay the whole time, only like, I think 15, 20 minutes.
Okay, no worries.
Okay.
So, all right, we're just going to give it one more minute. So,
Sure.
I mentioned to the group that's here, Mr. Campbell's here, Mr. Dason's here. So, if you're wanting to participate and do some of the kicking technique, then you probably want to do it like a quick little stretch. Obviously, we're not doing any high kicks or anything, but we're just going to kind of talk about the details of every kick to kind of help you when you're working with individuals to make sure that they're doing proper technique. Helping diagnose some of the common problems that you see with most students when they do a certain kind of technique and going from there. So.
Sounds cool.
All right. So about another 30 seconds or so. See if anyone else joins.
Hello.
Hi, Natalie.
This is me.
All right. So let's go ahead and we'll start with basic front kick to start off. So anything that we do, when you're teaching, it's okay to have the students kick low. That's fine. Low and slow is always recommended when you're teaching technique. So, knee level, shin level, that's fine. All right. But we eventually want to be able to have all the students be able to kick at least waist level or higher. Obviously, the more limber they are, the easier it is to kick higher and so forth. But when we start with that basic front kick position, there's mechanically, what we want to do is we want to make sure everything starts with that knee. So bringing that knee up. One of the common mistakes for a lot of people when they bring their knee up is they bring their heel forward like this. Okay? So a lot of times when they're kicking like this. So when it's hard for them to get a good extension because that heel is forward. So when you're working with students and you're trying to get them to kick properly, make sure they pull the heel back toward their butt and bring the knee up first. That's the first thing. Here. All right. So once we're here, then just work on the extension and back. All right. I think in the black belt class this week, we kind of worked on extending kicks. So what we did was I had everyone kick low, but what we did was the first count was here. And then the second count was the extension and pulling back. All right. And so what that does, or actually first count was lift and extend and hold. Second was bringing in and back. So getting the full range of motion. All right. Foot position's the hardest thing to train, to teach. Foot position. All right. Front kick, we know that it's supposed to be like your tippy toes. You're on tippy toes, wearing women's high heels. That's the position of the foot that we want. But for a lot of people, they're not used to just lifting up the toes, right? Moving the ankle around and so forth. So it's hard. So one of the easiest tricks to kind of teach the technique for front kick is to have the student put their back heel up. So just the toes down, heel up. Yeah? And then what we train is keeping the ankle the same way. So here you just lift here. So it becomes this motion here. That trains the foot positioning. Okay? Now, keep in mind, this doesn't, for some, it'll come quickly and they'll go, oh, okay, I understand. For others, right, the moment that they lift their knee up, the toes will curl down. And then when they put it back, the toes touch the ground. Right? Here. Or the moment they lift, the toes raise. Right? The toes raise. So their front kick kind of starts off looking like this instead of this. All right? Think about the 3 phases of learning. Get the movement first, then the detail, then the speed and power. So movement-wise, as long as we can get them here and this, that's the first phase. Then the second phase, you can work on picking up that heel, ball of the foot, toes curl back kind of motion. All right? And then third phase, obviously, at that point, they're ready to test. They're going to be able to do everything full speed with good power and snap. And then you got foot positioning down. So, all right, so that's with that front kick motion. Once again, it's important. Make sure when they lift that knee, make sure the heel stays back by the butt. All right. Any questions on front kick? All right. I know for you guys, this is going to be a lot of regurgitation of what you already know. Okay. As an instructor, you have to be able to put what you know into words so that someone understands when you're teaching, right? So it's like, you know, a doctor speaks in all these crazy terms because that's what they know. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the audience is going to know exactly what they're talking about. So we have to be able to kind of dumb it down so that the audience can understand what we're trying to get at, okay? All right, so second kick that we usually do is the axe kick. So now there's 2 ways to do axe kick. We concentrate primarily for white belts, yellow belts, senior yellow belts, the first way, which is just basically a straight leg up and down. No knee bend, just swinging the leg, okay? We always encourage the students to try to get the toes higher than the head. So 1, 2, all right? As students become comfortable with that particular movement, which is pretty easy, we go to the green belt level where they have to actually break a board. Okay? There's 2 ways to do axe kick when you break a board. The first one I'm going to show you guys on Zoom, right, is not straight up and down, but we kind of come up to the side and we come down like a slight little crescent kick motion. Okay? That's the first way. The second way is to bring the knee up in the bent motion, straighten it up, and come straight down. That way you're keeping the essence of the axe kick, which is straight up and down, true to form. Okay? Most kids can't do that. It's hard for them to think about bend, straight, and then bring it down. Okay? With the adults, it's a little bit easier, right? This one is considered what we call a close quarters axe kick, right? Where you're coming in close and then you're trying to get up high and come down on that collarbone. All right? So you bring that knee up like you're going to do a front kick. It's also a way to hide the kick because that axe kick motion is so slow because you're locking your knee out. It's a big motion. So, yeah, you know, from a sparring standpoint, people are going to see it a mile away and they're going to react quicker. Whereas if you come up this way, you can hide it. You can hide it and still do the technique. So this close quarters axe kick is where the knee comes up, extend, and down. The more limber you are, the higher that kick's going to be. All right? The less limber you are, the lower that kick's going to be. All right? Pretty simple. What we want to do is we want to make sure two things. We want them to make sure they're getting that good stretch. So we want to encourage students to get those toes up higher than their head as much as possible as they're doing that. So they may start here and then eventually encourage them and force them to get it a little bit higher. So that's what we want. That's the first thing. Second thing is, in preparation for board breaking when they're green belts, hit with the heel, right? Being able to come down with the heel. So that means pulling the toes back towards your body and coming down, all right? Or pushing the toes down and then trying to hit with more of the bottom of the heel versus the back of the heel. If you come this way, you're going to hit more with the back of the heel, right? By the Achilles area. If you come more this way, you're going to hit with more of the bottom of the heel. Both are acceptable either way, all right? Just whatever's comfortable for the student, right? Once again, it's how well trained are you in being able to manipulate your ankle and your toes? That's going to dictate which part of the heel you're going to hit, whether it's the back part of the heel or the bottom part of the heel. Both are acceptable for axe kick. Okay? Any questions on axe kick? Yes. Okay, so the question is either more appropriate? If you're going for a traditional sense of an axe kick, back of the heel is more appropriate. Back of the heel, like by the Achilles tendon area, that's more appropriate for breaking. That's more the traditional axe kick motion. Because if you think about, I'm coming down, you would be attacking collarbone, shoulder. So, you know, on a person, unless you're taller, right? If you're, 6 foot and you're hitting me at 5'4", right? Yes, then you could probably hit me with the bottom of your heel, right? But if we're same height or even, if I'm shorter and kicking up to a higher one, what am I going to end up hitting with? I'm not going to be able to hit with the bottom of my foot. It's going to be more of that heel, back end of the heel. So that's more traditionally appropriate. So, okay, good question. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Okay, so the question is, as we train kids to bring their leg up, they manipulate their body, right? You see kids kind of leaning when they kick. So how do we fix that? Okay, first and foremost, kids will lean, people will lean because they're not flexible. The hamstring is too tight. So in order to do that, they manipulate their body to release the pressure of the hamstring. Okay? You find yourself, you'll see a lot of people, when they hunch over the kick, they can kick higher because they're compacting their body, right? Instead of keeping it long and stretching that muscle out. They're trying to minimize the stretch because it hurts. All right? So what we try to encourage is proper technique. So they have to start here. If they can keep their body here like this, then gradually we increase it up just a little bit. It's just like teaching Pumse, right? You don't teach them every single movement and then expect them to remember everything. You have to teach it in segments. So you teach little parts. So get them used to doing just this height here, where they're not manipulating their body, they're not leaning and so forth. Obviously, if they're a lot more limber, if they can stretch out and do splits and everything, yeah, that's no problem, right? It's always the people that are very stiff that have the hard problem. It's the little kids who don't have good balance, right? Because part of this, the way they lean forward is because they're trying to keep balance. Because if they yank their head back, then they fall back. They've fallen before, right? So, okay, good question. Mr. Giles, do you have a question?
Well, I was just saying, I remember there being a part to the axe kick where you can extend your hip forward and sort of reach a little bit.
Yes.
And it kind of gives you a little bit extra reach and power. Is that something that we should focus on as they get higher rank?
Absolutely.
Something?
That's more of an advanced technique. Yes, okay. Absolutely. So, it's just like with front kick, right?
Correct.
Front kick, as you start to kick higher, you need to pivot. You need to pivot. Because anatomically, you're only going to be able to lift your knee up to maybe 90 degrees without any kind of manipulation. And it stretches. Like when you try to do this, keep this leg straight and lift this as high as you can. And you feel it. You're going to feel it. You're going to feel it because it's pulling. Right? And plus, eventually your hip socket's going to stop. It's going to stop your leg from going up. So what happens is that the hip socket opens up on the side. So what happens when we pivot, now we're opening up to the hip socket to get a little bit more extension. Right? So that's where, once again, it's more advanced. Right? So my Pumse team, in order for them to be able to kick above their head, they have to learn to pivot, to open up that hip socket, hip joint, so that they can kick higher. Because if they just do this, yes, you can hyperextend and train to kick high like this, but you're doing damage, right? And guys will never be able to kick straight like this without a pivot and kick even face level. It's virtually impossible because we're so tight, right? Unless you started at 3 years old like Isaiah. You could get away with it. But most of the time, right, you're going to find yourself kind of turning a little bit to get those kicks higher. Right? Because it feels a lot easier that way. It doesn't hurt as much. So once again, your body's going to tell you, oh, if it hurts, I got to do something so it doesn't hurt. So you manipulate your body and things like that. So going back to your comment, Mr. Giles. So yeah, the ability to kind of push the hip forward on an axe kick to reach. Same thing with like, you see how I kind of turn my toes down, right? That gives me that reach. This is applicable for hook kick and reverse spinning hook kick as well. Right, to get that reach. So think about flattening your foot out as opposed to here. You get that much more reach, length into your technique. You can do it that way, yes. And that would be more for the advanced. Okay?
Good to know. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so any other questions on axe kick? All right, good. All right, roundhouse kick.
Our favorite.
Roundhouse kick. All right. Roundhouse kick or turning kick. It can be done in two different ways. It's always hard for little ones, little kids, even adults to pivot. Understand this concept of pivot. So a lot of times what you want to do, especially if someone has no idea, never done roundhouse kick before, like a beginner, okay? What I encourage you to do is to get them into their fighting stance here. And then you start with the front leg. You just have them lift and then kick. Not lift straight up like a front kick, but based on their position here, kind of lift so that the knee is kind of diagonal. Not straight up, but diagonal. Okay? And then from here, just extend. Okay? What this does is, right, the leg that you're standing on is already pivoted. All right? So all we're doing is just getting the mechanic of the extension part first. 1. Once again, you have to kind of think about when they start, right? Little ones, yes, just do this is okay. All right. For most other people like teenagers and adults, we want them to have good habits. So we want to make sure when they lift that knee up, like we did with the front kick, pull the heel back by your butt. All right. And then extend. So that's the first motion right there, is just a snap. And it doesn't have to be high or anything, just low. It's fine. Okay. Once you see the knee position's good, because the other thing here is, all right, you see a lot of times when you start here, especially with little kids, they just lift and kick. So it almost still looks like a front kick. So we have to teach those youngsters knee up sideways. So like almost thinking like I'm trying to pull my knee toward my right shoulder or my back shoulder. Here and then extend. Okay? So we get this motion here. 1, 2. So that's the first step. Then the second step is to move that leg back and then have them get to here. So now you're going to bring it up and forward. What I like to use is the analogy of the name of the kick, roundhouse kick. So I always tell the little kids, imagine that there's a little dollhouse right next to your leg, right next to your front leg. We're going to go around that house, roundhouse. So you're going to pick your knee up and come around over the house. All right, so I'm basically lifting my knee and getting it to this point here where we were here. So the second part is to teach them that pivot, teach them to turn that foot, because that's the hardest thing for little kids to do. Like if you're working with a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, this is hard for a lot of them to get to that point. So you got to work on that part there. And then the third part is obviously then adding the extension once they get the rotation. But don't try to rush it, because a lot of times what happens with roundhouse kick, when they kick, because they don't either pivot right, it looks like this. So when they're hitting a target like a focus pad or a bag, toes are sticking up, and then they're just swinging the leg. That's the first thing, all right? Second thing that they do is they pivot, but they don't bend the knee, right? So it still looks like a crescent kick motion, because they don't get that knee in that right position. They don't get that knee turned more sideways. Okay, so we want to make sure that that knee is slightly up. If you didn't get all the way 90, that's even better. But it's not easy for everyone to do that. So just kind of a comfortable, kind of a half 45 degree and extension. That's what we want. That's what treats that motion. Now, when we get more advanced, right, we're going to look for more of that, more turn, so more pivot. So instead of a 90-degree pivot, we want to get to about 120. All right, gets our hip in a better position. All right, 120 to 180 degrees is the ideal position. All right, once again, extension, boom, around. The hardest part is obviously maintaining the balance, right? Because the more you pivot, right, if you have bad habits, you're going to over-rotate and you're going to fall out of the kick. So when I throw that roundhouse kick here, boom, a lot of times this happens. So that's why you have to teach that retraction piece, where you extend and you pull it back. But what happens is that a lot of students, when they do the retraction, they want to retract so quick, they never get to the target. So if you're holding a focus pad and someone snaps and they don't hit the target, that they're listening to what you tell them, which is retract, but they don't know the extension piece. They don't know to straighten out the leg first and then pull it back. Touch the pad and pull it back. Okay? Much like with front kick and roundhouse kick, once the knee is up, extension, retraction, the knee should stay in the exact same spot. Okay? Beginners are not used to doing this. All right? You know, unless they're an athlete of some sort. This is hard for them. This gets tiring. So a lot of times what they do is when they kick, you know, it ends up being like this, or it ends up being like that, where they're dropping that knee. Because to them, it feels like a 50-pound anvil. They can't hold it up. All right? For us, This is easy. All right. For a beginner, this is like, oh, I'm tired of cramping. It's hard. So it takes a while to get used to this motion and getting comfortable, getting strong with that. So be patient with that. That's why, like I said, practice low. All right. Practice low, this motion. The low and slow is good. Okay. Questions on the roundhouse kick? No? Once again, when you get to advanced level, so blue belt level, they have to break that board, ball of the foot. So once again, you have to be just like that front kick position. Right? We have to be at that front kick position with the ball of the foot. So you have to be able to manipulate the heel and the toes to get them to do what you need them to do. Okay? Once again, this is all a process. It's not easy to just lift my toes without trying to lift the ball of my foot up off the ground. All right, so that's another exercise that you can help people train with is put that foot on the ground. Just lift your toes up off the ground. All right? Now, you can force the issue by making them stand on that foot, right, and then try to lift the toes. All right, then the toes will lift. But if they're in a normal stance and you tell them to lift their toes, this is what happens. They lift the whole thing. They lift everything. All right? From here, your ability to just lift your toes helps you with that manipulation so that you can get those feet in the right position, whatever it needs to be. Whether it's an axe kick position, a front kick position, roundhouse kick position, side kick position. It's all based off of that ankle positioning, toe positioning. So you have to be very careful when you're doing this. Especially when you're teaching them to break that board, hit that board. Because a lot of kids get injured because they hit it incorrectly. They do a side kick and they hit with the ball of their foot first, not the heel. And so when they hit the board, it pulls the ball of the foot back toward their knee. And so it stretches their leg and it hurts their ankle a little bit. All right? So, all right. So, Mr. Giles, Ms. Nally, you guys have any questions on roundhouse kick?
No, sir.
No?
But I do have to get going, sir.
Okay, sir.
No,
All right,
sir.
thanks, sir. Yep.
All right.
Have a good one. We'll see you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so side kick now. Side kick. Just so you guys know, I'm not doing as much in the way of crescent kicks lately because we've had a number of students get injured doing crescent kick. So I'm kind of working through on how I want to train and teach crescent kick going forward. I may just exclude it because a lot of people have experienced hip flexor injury because of it, and it's almost been crippling to some of the people that have been affected. So they've missed class and everything because of it. So I'm reevaluating how I approach crescent kick, if we even do it at all. But needless to say, so we're going to skip to side kick. So the side kick one, same thing as we did with the roundhouse kick when you start. All right, just teach them here to lift straight up. Because with roundhouse kick, remember, we kind of talked about kind of pulling the knee back towards your body, right, for the roundhouse. From here, have them shift from back stance to horse riding stance. And then just lift straight up. Once again, they're going to kind of be used to doing this. They're going to pull the heel back like this, like a roundhouse kick and front kick, because that's the way you've been training them. Okay? So with the side kick, we want the heel to be vertical from the knee. Okay? So we want this. We don't want this. We don't want this. Straight line from the knee to the heel. All right? It's almost like thinking that, oh, I'm stepping on a platform or a stair. Okay, so I don't want this. I don't want my toes to touch that platform. I want my whole foot to really touch that platform. Okay, so that's the first movement there. All right. Second movement is the pivot. So here we want them to turn that foot. Keep the knee there, just turn the foot. And what that does is when they turn the foot, the heel should come forward toward the target. All right? From here, it's this. So now my heel's closer to the target than my knee is. All right? And then from there, just push the heel forward. Sorry. Almost had a wardrobe malfunction. All right. So from here, lift, pivot, heels forward, extend. All right? Once again, once you get the extension, retraction. Don't allow the student to re-pivot back. This creates a bad habit for most students. So what happens on a side kick, right? Now, I'm going to, Natalie knows, so I'm going to show you guys. So from here, when I throw a side kick, I want that bottom foot, the heel facing my target. When I extend my kick out, I want my shoulder, my hip, my knee, my heel, all in a straight line. Okay, when I fully extend that kick, I want everything to be in a straight line. So if I'm standing in front of you watching your kick, it should be straight. Everything should be completely straight. Okay? What happens with 99% of the people, especially when they first start with side kick, okay? When they kick, when they pivot and kick, they lean forward. When they lean forward, the hip counterbalances. Because my weight's forward this way, oh, I don't want to fall forward, so my hip pushes out. Now I'm balanced. Okay? Your body counterbalances itself. So from here, I'm in perfect balance. If I lean forward, I'm going to fall if I don't counterbalance. So from here, if I lean and do this, I'm still balanced. Okay? And once again, I'm over-exaggerating so that you guys understand. It's subtle. For a lot of people, it's subtle. It's just maybe this. Right? It just might be this, like going into a tiger stance. That's how subtle it might be. But it is dramatic enough that it's going to alter their technique. And then when they get to the point where they have to do side kick at blue belt level and reverse side kick at red belt level, they're going to find struggle in hitting target strongly and accurately. So we want to make sure from here, once they kick here and extend out, working on this part here, pull it back. No pivot. Okay? So up, pivot, push out, pull back. Okay? Because what happens is they get in the habit of, oh, I got to pull it back here. So this is what causes that butt to stick out when, right? Because it's easier if I don't fully lock this out to come back here. It's easier for me to, because I'm in better balance. As a student who doesn't know side kick, or even one that does, I'm in better balance kicking like this. It's harder to kick like this and be balanced, right? Because you're always either falling to the side or falling back, right? Natalie has the same problem, right? When she kicks high like this, sometimes she falls to the side, sometimes she falls back, sometimes she falls to her backside. We have to learn to be able to extend straight out and pull it back. And once again, you're kicking low to teach them, so here, here. And working on that pivot. So once you get to this part here and they get used to that, then same thing as we do the roundhouse kick. Get them here next. All right? You can get them to here and then here. And then eventually, right, then it's all one smooth motion. But what happens a lot of times is when that back leg comes forward, the knee comes forward. So now their side kick looks like a roundhouse kick, right? So the knee's already forward. All they're doing is making it look like a side kick because they know how to manipulate their foot. It looks okay, but it's not effective. You're not going to be able to break 2 boards or 3 boards with that. You can break 1 board, just like you do with a roundhouse kick. But you need to be able to get forward thrust into those side kicks. That's what's going to create the power. That's why the side kick is the most powerful kick, because now we're incorporating our hip, right? The hip is where we generate all of our power. Roundhouse kick, centripetal force, circular force creates our power, the speed, right? But from a sheer power standpoint, a linear power standpoint, side kick is the most powerful kick. Side kick, back kick, skip side kick, flying side kick, right? Because of our ability to be able to turn and channel that energy from our hip flexor into our target. But that's based off of all those mechanics. Knee, pivot, and thrust. The pivot causes the hip flexor to move. And then we extend into the target. Okay? This is the hardest kick to teach properly. Right? You're going to see tons of variations. People that don't pivot enough. Right? People that over pivot and try to kick and miss target. People that go too extreme and they can't see where they're kicking. Right? This is why we do this exercise at the very beginning of class. Right? The owl movement. Because our ability to be able to see over our shoulder is critical here to help us with a good side kick. If we have a hard time doing this, our body compensates. So if I can only turn my neck this much, then guess what I'm going to do to be able to see the camera? Because I can't move my neck any further, so what do? I compensate. So when I compensate now, my shoulder's out of alignment with my hip, knee, and my with my hip and knee and heel. So if it's out of alignment, then guess what happens, right? The kick changes. The kick isn't as effective. All right? So once again, this is all a process. Once again, keep the kids kicking low, and eventually by the time they're ready to test, they're going to be kicking waist level or higher. All right? So, okay, any questions in regards to the side kick? Side kick. Natalie, questions? She's sleeping.
No.
Okay. All right. So what I want, let's go ahead and just, I want you to take about 5 minutes, right? Just practice a couple of these little techniques on your own, just a little bit to kind of see if see if you understand what we're talking about, right? Try to train yourself. Because as a black belt, it's about how do we make our technique better, right? We learned our technique and so forth. How do we make it better? Or how do we get rid of some of our bad habits? Because we all have bad habits. We all have things that we're not particularly fond of in our kicks. Or we have a kick that is not good. And why is that? Well, I need to get that better. Instead of avoiding it and saying, you know what, I know that kick isn't good. I'm not going to practice it. All right? We should be saying, you know what, that's a bad kick. How do I get that better? How do I get that kick to look like so-and-so's kick, right? And we all have people that we kind of look up to in technique. It's like, okay, I want to throw my kick that way, right? So we go through, right? You can be the type of person who makes excuses for why you can't do something, or you can be the person that adapts, that changes the way you train so that you can do the technique properly. All right? What are you? Are you the person that's going to say, no, I can't do that. Oh, I'm too stiff. My body just isn't right or whatever. Or you're going to be the person that says, you know what? I'm going to fix this. I'm going to make this possible. If he can do it, I can do it as well. Okay? So that's that process that we have to go through. That's the evaluation that you have to go through as a black belt. Because why? Right? You've dedicated a lot of your time to the martial art. All right? Chance, you're on what, 10 years? 11? That's a long time. All right? Dason, you're in what, 6? 6 or 7, right? Long time. All right? Sometimes when you're in this long, you're going, oh man, it's kind of boring. I'm tired of doing front kicks. All right? See, that's where you start losing interest, right? When you go, oh, I'm tired of doing this. I'm tired of doing this. All right? I'm in, 36 years now. 36 years. All right? I've only taken 1 year off, 1 complete year off. All right? And that was my freshman year of college. I was going to do it, but I wasn't happy with the club that was up at the school. So I didn't train for that entire year. All right? In my entire Taekwondo career, I've taken off 14 months. In my entire Taekwondo career, 14 months total. I took 2 months off between my high blue and my red belt test because I was burnt out. I was tired. I was training 3 days a week, or 3 times a day, 6 days a week, from white belt to high red, or excuse me, high blue. I was tired at that point. So I took 2 months off to kind of recharge my batteries, see if I really wanted to get that black belt. Right? But then from then on, that point on, I took that 1 year break because the club wasn't good. And then I came back and I got started with it and I haven't stopped since. Okay? So once again, you have to decide. You have to come to this decision point. Yeah, because you're not doing yourself any good. You're not doing the people around you any good if you're the type of person that just kind of going through the motions and not trying to improve. Right? It's like just paying money just, you know, there's people that pay money for a gym membership, but they never go. You're just throwing away money. All right? It's like make the most of what you're given, the opportunity that you're given, and work. How do you make yourself better? How do you shoot to be better than anyone else? All right? Or are you comfortable being just like everyone else? All right? For me, I pride myself on being different. I don't want to do it like everyone else. All right? So that's why I don't want to be like a U.S. Taekwondo Center and have 5 locations. I don't want that. All right? I want to stay small, homegrown as much as I can. I want to stay true to my art. That's why we don't do weapons. I don't train you in bow staff and nunchucks and sais and swords. All right? Because 1, I'm not properly trained, and 2, that's not Taekwondo. All right? And everyone goes through this, especially teenagers. Right? You come to this point, it's like, I don't see the benefit. I've done 6 years, 10 years of this. I don't see the benefit anymore. All right? You have to find ways to motivate yourself. All right? How does an instructor motivate himself when he doesn't get a chance to work out? How do I motivate myself? Right? Is through doing things like this. Right? Teaching others how I teach, or understanding the techniques a little bit more. Right? Makes me make sure that I know it. Because why? As a black belt, someone's gonna come up to you and or you're gonna be asked to help someone. You don't want to be the one, oh, hold on just a second, let me go ask. All right? You want to be, because then what kind of image or what kind of picture are you painting for that individual? Oh, that person really doesn't know. All right? And it's big shoes to fill, because as a black belt, you are expected to know everything up to a certain point. There's this aura about black belt. Wow. It's a coveted belt. Everyone wants to be a black belt. But not everyone is willing to put the work in. All right? 90% of the people that start Taekwondo never make it to black belt. 90%. All right? And most of you guys that are here, you guys are like 10%, or actually 5%, 1% to 5% of the black belts that have decided to move on and get a higher degree or work toward a higher degree. All right? It's not that many. There's less than 50 ninth degree black belts in the world. Less than 50, 50, in the entire world of ninth degree black belts. All right? Think about that. 50 out of how many people in the world? How many millions of Taekwondo practitioners there are? All right? There's probably at least close to, I would say, 50, 60 million Taekwondo practitioners in the world, black belts, and only 50 ninth degree black belts. Those numbers, as you go up, drop down significantly. Because why? Once again, for me, this is my life. This is a life. The reason why is because it changed my life. The moment I walked into that school in 1984 and I took my first class, it changed my life. And I grew this passion for it. Yes, for a while it was, I don't want to teach. I just want to train. I want to train. I don't want to teach. Because if I have to teach you, I'm not training. That's what I thought. But I'm still training. Teaching you is training me, training my mind, training me here. I may not be physically training as hard as you guys are, but my mind is training because, oh, I got to understand this. I got to read books, understand human anatomy. How come someone can't do middle splits or side splits? I have to know those kind of things so I can help them, because they're going to get frustrated. They're going to see all these people, oh, yeah, they can do middle splits, kick up here, and then one person going to be left behind because they can only kick this high. And they're going to get discouraged. And they're going to want to quit. Right? It's like you guys in tournaments. Right? You get a bad result, you get a bad result, you get a bad result. You start to get frustrated. Because you want a good result. When you get a good result, it's a wonderful feeling. It's an amazing feeling. When you get bad result after bad result after bad result, what makes you want to do that again? Because you start walking in going, you know what? I'm not going to be that good. I'm not going to be able to win. And you already shoot yourself in the foot. Right? Some of those kids, when they get ready to break their board, they're already thinking, I can't break this board. I can't break this board. They already shoot themselves in the foot. And it's our job to motivate them, right? Black belt, first degree black belt philosophy is motivation. Not only self-motivation, because once again, out of those people that test for their black belt, 95% of those people that test for black belt don't go on. Only about 5% of black belts go on to a next rank. So one, you have to self-motivate yourself to say, hey, I want to continue on. There's more for me to learn. All right? And then secondly, right, it's being able to motivate others so that they don't get discouraged, so that they don't, and it's, you know, Mr. Campbell knows because he's a parent, right? Everything that he teaches his son, right, is to help his son be better than him. To not go through the same thing. Your parents do the same thing. They give you the same opportunities. They tell you certain things because they don't want you to experience the hardships that they had growing up. All right? What you know now is far more in knowledge than what I ever learned in Taekwondo growing up. Right? What I make you do, right, is like you guys are better, you're a better second degree, you're a better third degree, you're a better first degree black belt than I ever was. Right? Because of the knowledge base that I'm providing you, not just the physical stuff, just the knowledge base. Right? Because a lot of this stuff I learned at 4th, 5th, 6th degree. I'm teaching you now because why? I want eventually you to exceed me. So if you decide you want to get to 7th degree, you want to become a grandmaster, right? Or you want to become a master at 4th degree, considered a master, right? I want you to be able to go anywhere, whatever school, whatever. Be proud to wear that belt, not be ashamed. A friend of mine, I went down and taught his Hapkido students some kicking technique because they're struggling with some kicking technique. One of the things he told his students, right, was anyone can wear a black belt. Anyone can wear a black belt, all right? When I have you put on my black belt, right, you should have the confidence knowing that if you go into any other school, you're going to be proud. You're not going to be ashamed of that black belt. Because there are people that sometimes when they interact with other people from other schools or whatever, I don't feel comfortable wearing. Or they see certain black belts doing certain things. And you're like, oh, man, I can't do that. All right? And once again, it goes back to how confident are we in who we are and our abilities. All right? The confidence that you exude makes up for some of the inadequacies that you have. Like for me, I can't do 540s and 720 jumps like some of these people. But does that mean that I'm ashamed of wearing my belt? No. I make up for it in other areas. I make up for it. Okay, look at my technique. I make up for it and, hey, let me help you fix that. That's where I make up for it. Right? You don't have to be a champion in multiple tournaments to be an instructor. All right? There are plenty of instructors out there that have never even stepped their foot into a ring. And they instruct. Because why? Right? Because they're passing on the knowledge that they gained from their instructor. And 2, they have confidence in themselves. Now, keep in mind, though, that there are some people that should not be teaching. All right? You see some of those videos of people doing silly things. I'm sure you've seen stuff. The master that can stare people down and, you know, his students, yeah, right? He can just, and then everyone falls away. All right? Yeah, and we chuckle at that. But there are people that truly believe in that kind of stuff. All right? And that's totally up to you how you want to believe that or not. All right? But once again, as a black belt, right, are you confident in you? Because if you're not confident in you, then it's hard for me to be able to motivate you. All right? Because everyone gets to a point, you know, Mr. Campbell, when he was younger, yeah, I'm sure that he ran into situations where I can't do that. I can't do that. All right? But then what happens when you actually do it? And when you guys are finally able, because when you guys were coming up in the ranks, you guys had trouble at times breaking boards. Cry, want to quit. All right? Natalie was the same way too. All right? And then eventually, you guys were able to power through. All right? For some, it was a lot easier. For others, it took them a long time. But regardless of what it was, they kept trying. They demonstrated perseverance and indomitable spirit. Right? The tenets of Taekwondo: courtesy, integrity, perseverance, self-control, indomitable spirit. Right? That's the foundation of our martial art. All the masters, the true masters that are out there that are still doing this, right? Not the masters that just kind of sit and huddle in the corner, you know, just because they've, you know, owned a school for 40 years and demand respect. Not that. I'm talking about the ones that show the work, you know, that sacrifice and do the things to help people who aren't so good, you know, feel like they've accomplished something. I'm talking about those kind of people, right? I'm talking to people that you find that you can respect, that you can say, you know what, okay, I respect that person, right? And I'm willing to bow to that person versus someone that you don't respect. Because why? Because they're unethical, because they, you know, they've done wrong things, right? You've seen them do incorrect things, not those types of people. So when you interact with those types of people, and when you see those types of people, right, gravitate to those people that you can learn from and take that knowledge, right? Make the most of the opportunities that you're given, because eventually, Chance, you're going to come to a point, Jason, you're going to come to a point, now that you're going to come to a point where you're not going to have time to do Taekwondo, all right? Because school gets more important. Extracurricular activities as you're working toward a scholarship get more important. And so you're not training as much, right? Chance, you're not training as much lately because life has gotten in the way. Your academics like, oh, Natalie hasn't been training much. Oh, I got to get this assignment done. I got to do this, right? You're going to get there, Jason, right? Once you jump into high school, it changes. All right? Mr. Campbell, for a long time, he wasn't able to train in the martial arts until he got to a point in his life where he could. But he's a unique individual because why? Right? His situation, people who take breaks like that, majority of them don't come back. Right? They don't. It's like, oh, you know, I've got so many other things I can do. So you have to find the value in something. If it's important to you, then you find a way to do it. Taekwondo became important to me, so I always found a way to do it, even when I was working. So if I was working and I couldn't take class from 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock, what did I do? At 8 o'clock, I was training somewhere. Whether it was in my basement, outside in the backyard, whatever it was. There are times where I would go to the local park on a weekend in a tennis court, and they had lights, so I'd turn on the lights, and I'd practice there. I'd get some jeers and people, what the heck are you doing or whatever. You know, it's like, oh, hey, you know, we want this court for tennis. I was like, hey, I was here already. But because I loved it that much, I was willing to do that. All right? You guys have made a commitment to at least understand kicking technique and so forth to not only better yourself, but help others around you. All right? That's how I've gotten better, is by helping others around me. My body's not what it used to be. I can't do half the stuff that I used to be able to do. I would love to. I'd love to do a 540 roundhouse kick, 720 reverse spinning hook kick. I would love to do that. And I've tried, but my body just doesn't want it. It's hard. It hurts. You know, the moment I start doing that and practicing that, I'm sore. It's like CrossFit. When you guys, you know, when I have you guys do that CrossFit stuff, right, and you guys are walking out of here, I wouldn't be walking out of my class. I'd be crawling out because my body's just not conditioned for that, right? But here, what am I doing? I'm motivating you because I want you to be better, right? So eventually you can kick harder than I can. You can run faster than I can, right? You're going to have more knowledge than I can. I'm not going to say, oh, yeah, I have this little bit of knowledge in me that I'm not going to share with anyone else. That way I can be one up on you. No, that's not what it's about. Because if that's what it's about, then you might as well leave the martial art now. All right? Everything that I do to make an impact. I just want to make an impact in this world. So that when I leave, when my time is done, they know that, hey, I did my very best. Everyone knows that if I were to, lo and behold, if it happens, if I were to die today, that I lived a full life, then I'm not going to live with her going on, oh, I wish I would have done that. Oh, I wish I would have helped him with that one thing that he was wanting me to do. I know that I've done everything I possibly can up to this point, that if my time were done, that's it. I'm okay with that. All right? Are you guys okay with that? Are you guys okay with your life where it is right now? That you've done everything that you possibly could to get the most out of life? I'm pretty sure you would say, you still got more stuff to do. So see, he's got more work to do. He wants to accomplish more. That's great. All right? I know you guys do. I got big dreams. But you have to look at the now. Are you doing everything you possibly can now? He's doing everything he possibly can now. He wants to do more, but I think for right now, he's doing everything he possibly can. I'm doing everything I possibly can. All right? Natalie, Dason, Chance, are you guys doing everything you possibly can to get more out of life? All right? That's the challenge. And that's what instruction's all about. Instruction's about getting the most out of people. Right? To maximize their time here. Right? To create that value of, yes, you care for me, you want to see me succeed. Right? Versus, okay, yeah, just go ahead and do it. Okay, that's okay. Yeah, keep going. So, any questions, comments, or anything? You still with us, Natalie? Or you sleeping?
I'm still here.
Okay, just checking. All right, so that's all that I really have for you guys, because the kicking techniques that we just worked on, right? They all apply to even the reverse kicks, same way. All right. So with the reverse, just all you got to do is just keep in mind, just work on the pivot first before you do the rest of it. It's the same thing. Okay. But really, since you guys are going to be primarily working with more the younger, earlier ranks, because that's where you get your best training and in your own understanding, and that's where you probably feel the most comfortable versus trying to teach like a, you know, if you had to teach, would you prefer to teach Kiba Nirchang or, you know, Koryo? You know, Koryo's fun because it has cool things, but can you really teach it versus can you teach Kiba Nirchang? Kiba Nirchang you can really teach because it's basic and you have comfort in your basics. A little bit harder with Koryo, right? Or Kumgang, right? Or Tebek, right? Like teaching it to the level that it needs to be. Like if someone wants to test, like if I were to have you teach him Koryo to the level that he needs it for when he tests for a second degree, you guys will have okay confidence with that. Not the most, right? But if you had to teach him Yukjang or Sajang, much more confident because you've done that a lot longer, a lot more. All right? So think about that as you're going through this process. So, all right. Do you guys have any questions? No? Any questions, sir? Natalie, any questions?
Nope.
No? Okay. Well, that's all I have for you guys tonight. So thanks for showing up. And we'll see you guys. I'll see you at home, kiddo. And then we'll see you guys next week or during the week sometime. All right? Okay. That's it for today.
Bye.
Bye. The boys didn't say bye to you, so just so you know.
That's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.